There we go. Hello there. My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community Webinar. The Three Principles Global Community Webinar, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people through the world. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Erika Bugbee, and she's going to be talking today about comparison is the thief of joy, how teens find freedom from the inadequacy trap. And there are just a couple things that I'd love for you to know about Erika. First of all, how passionate she is about working with teens and young adults. She does this through one-on-one video coaching packages, and she has a 4-day video or in-person immersion programs. She spent 23 years helping people individually, facilitating programs, and teaching groups. And she is also the daughter of George and Linda Pransky. So Erika grew up learning the three principles and ultimately became a partner at Pransky and Associates, where she worked for 18 years. So it's almost kind of like we have, not almost kind of like, we have Three Principles legacy here with you, Erika. not to make it sound too fancy, but it's really pretty cool. And you get to pass it on to another generation and also to our young generation. So I'm really excited for what you're going to share today. So take it away.
Good. Thank you. That was a nice intro. Yeah, that's one of the things I was in a family practice for 18 years with my parents, and then I peeled off on my own five years ago. And specifically so I could specialize in teenagers and young adults. That's what I'm excited about. For some reason, they will talk to me. I know teenagers often won't talk to anyone, but they'll. So anyway, they're my favorite type of clients. I do work with regular people, but teenagers and young adults, college age, are about half of my day is spent talking to them all day long. I love doing it. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this webinar is because this, first of all, this is designed for young people, but also parents, practitioners, anybody that has young people in their lives, because this kind of gives a little window of what they're up against. I picked this topic specifically, this sort of inadequacy trap, because I see them caught in it constantly. So, there's sort of a natural temptation for us to compare ourselves to people with the power of thought. That's what we do with it. A lot of the time, adults too, and teenagers do, whatever we struggle with, they struggle with times 10 generally. And so there's sort of I'm going to be highlighting sort of the benefit that we get from putting all of our focus and presence in our own lives. And I just did the same topic for adults, because adults get caught in the same trap. And I got so many emails saying, please make one that's user-friendly for young people. So the reason that I decided to do this is I was talking to a client not long ago. She was 19. She's hanging out with her friends. She's all relaxed and kind of content and feeling, just lighthearted and having a really good time. And she went to post a picture social media somewhere, Instagram, and went to post a little photo of her and her friends, and she starts scrolling her feed, and she said, within like 15 seconds, she said, all of a sudden, all I saw was all these people that were basically, better than me. What they're doing is better, what they're up to is better. They're more together. And it was pretty much everybody she looked through in her feed. It was her friends and the people she follows. And she said, I started thinking about, like, what am I doing? I haven't, they're more driven than me. They have their purpose. They found their passion. They stand out. They're impressive. Or they're more together. They seem more social. They seem more confident. They're less, I'm so approval seeking, and I'm needy and insecure. I get affected by people. And it was funny because, basically where she landed, she said, I spent the next hour thinking like, I need to be those things. I'm lacking in every area, and basically I suck. And she said, I spent basically an hour doing that. I kind of left the room, and then I went into this big, like, there's so many things wrong with me. And same person as before she went down that rabbit hole, same life, same qualities. She kind of went from feeling really content and happy to feeling really down on herself and down on her life and looking at herself under a microscope. And I'm certain that everybody here has probably done that. I've done that. I do that. I have to stop myself from doing that regularly. And I do this all day long for a living. So it really struck me because really the only thing that happened is that she just started comparing herself and asking herself, what do other people have that I don't have? Where do I fall short? And I think it's interesting. I originally started thinking about this topic for adults because of a quote I read from, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt originally said it, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think, I know for myself, when I was a young person, I did great until I started thinking about myself. I was, I'd be hanging out with my friends or my dog or doing my thing. As soon as I started thinking about myself, my spirits would drop. And what happens is basically our teenagers will be caught up in the moment and having a good time and relaxed and present. They just really know how to show up and be goofy and silly and be into things. They just have an enormous amount of enthusiasm. They get fixated on, learning how to do things, or they get really interested in, their hobbies or their interests. But what happens is however much they swing into joy and enthusiasm and excitement about life, they swing just as far the other way into thinking about themselves. And it just takes on an intensity. And what happens to not just teenagers, but to people, but especially teenagers, is that because they're new at having, thought kind of overtake them, and they don't realize how misleading your thoughts can be and how they kind of lies to you. All of that looks like truth. So all the stuff that looks wrong with them and all the stuff that their friends are doing, if their friends know, I'm going to go do this with my life, and they're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, here's what I was going to do, but now that doesn't sound inspired. What if it's the wrong thing? What if I regret it? They just, they get lost so fast. And the problem is that it looks, when we start picking ourselves apart, adults have the benefit of knowing, like, I've done that before. It doesn't get me anywhere. It's a trap. They don't know that. Young people don't know that yet. And I didn't know that. And so my answer to that discomfort was to get more intense about it and essentially create, my answer looked like, I need to pressure myself to do better. So anytime I didn't do very well in school, and my teachers every once in a while would say, you have more opportunities if you do better. Well, that's something I would start panicking about. I just didn't have, my heart wasn't in school, and which was fine. And I did fine later in life, being a terrible student. I still don't read. I'm terrible at reading. I only listen to audiobooks. I'm fine. But at the time, what it looked like is, anytime I got insecure, it looked like, I need to be more motivated. I need to be more driven. I need to do better on all fronts so I have more opportunities. I'm gonna be one of those people that's like 40, living on my parents' couch and regretting that I didn't try harder, and like, this is my moment. And then I would just sink and live down there for days at a time. And it was so interesting is I've heard, I just had a client say this the other day. She's 16 and she's trying out for the tennis team and she's really good. And she said, I have these experiences where I feel amazing and I do amazing. And I'm like, I manage my time. I do great in, tennis. I'm beating players that are better than me. I'm like getting everything done so I can hang out with my friends. I'm like this well-oiled machine. I'm disciplined. I'm calm. I'm focused. People don't get to me. And like, I want to be amazing all the time. If that's possible, like, I'd like to just do that more. And why can't I, you know, I see that I'm the one in the way and I get in my head and I overthink. Like, she was frustrated because she was in, playing tennis and a tennis player that was much, much worse than her beat her. And she was mad at herself. She said, I know I can do better. Like, what is wrong with me? Basically, she said, I want to be amazing all the time. And I started laughing because I was like, yes, like if I could do how to do that, that's what we would be talking about. So, one of the things I talked with her about that I think let her off the hook that I want to share here is, first of all, humans don't have the capacity to be amazing all the time. It's just not built into the design. When it looks like there's people that are amazing all the time, we don't know them that well. And that's exactly what my client that was scrolling, and feeling intimidated by people, she said, I realized, I have acne. You can't see it in my pictures. She said, you don't know that I was just really insecure and crying right before that picture I posted. The thing is that we're not amazing all the time, and nobody's amazing all the time. And that there's something about letting people, especially young people, off the hook. And I think adults to know, our energy and our spiritual life, our psychological life moves up and down all day. We're just a part of nature, just like every other critter. Our psychology ebbs and flows, and it brings, our the thoughts that we have and our mood states and our emotions, our mental life really works for us sometimes in amazing ways, where we have amazing reaction times. We take the high road. We can stay calm and under deadlines or in emergencies. And then the other X% of the time, it works against us. So if you go in to take a test and you know the answers, but you're overthinking them, and you're overthinking them and you just can't stop. So and then you end up just fixating on something and spending all your time on a test question when really, you should move on, but you can't. Or blurting. A lot of my clients say, like, I'm impulsive and I blurt. And then I think I'm being funny, but really I think I'm being hurtful, and see people's faces, but I can't stop it. It just comes out. I think being comfortable with the fact that sometimes you're gonna, when you go in to take a test, when you go to play somebody in tennis, when you're socializing, you're gonna suck. Maybe 30, 40, sometimes 80% of the time. Sometimes it's all day. You walk around and you can't get anything done. Everything you touch, you complicate it. You thought it was an easy task, but then you overthink it, and then and all of a sudden you haven't done anything, and the stuff that you really needed to do is sitting there, and you spent 45 minutes, doing something really stupid that didn't matter. That's the human condition. That's what we're handed when we're born, is a somewhat functioning mind. And the thing I think that's kind of cool is that the times that we do really well and we can beat a tennis player that's better than us because we just somehow we had that clarity, or you can go in and take a test and you know exactly what they're getting at and you're not tricked by any of the questions. we make up all kinds of time in those little windows. All the stuff that needs to happen for our lives happens in these little tiny windows when we do amazing. And it cancels out and overtakes all the areas where, and all those states we get in where we make things worse, where we make decisions or say things that we regret and have to clean it up. We clean it up in these little windows. So, and I can say that with certainty because I'm 50, and I can tell you that I've spent the majority of my time being clumsy, awkward, overthinking things, managing my time really badly, having a lot of weaknesses, and I still have my life somewhat together. It doesn't really matter. I don't have it together as much as if I was amazing all the time. So let's just put that out there. If I could do that, I would be doing that. So, but what I'm saying is, we all regularly get lost and then find our way. We get caught up and overthink, and then we're like, what am I doing? I need to be doing this. It might not happen for a couple of days. For me, getting my act together didn't generally happen until the final hour when I had to. My mind simply wouldn't cooperate until I was in the fear of missing a deadline, and then my head would clear. But in those, from midnight to 6 a.m. when I had to write my paper, I was amazing. And I did it. And I wrote some really amazing papers. That's the thing is if there's something powerful, and there's a relief that comes with the realization that the human condition is to be messy and to be off your game X amount of time, and to have to coexist with thought, which is kind of a disruptive, loud roommate. You have to live in there with it, and you have to live your life and find your way around the distraction. That's the human condition, and you've had it. You've had experience with it for every moment you've been alive. So even though the human condition is to be messy and impulsive and make mistakes, to make bad decisions, to be clumsy or awkward, to be unmotivated or insecure, that's the human condition. It's built into our recipe. And believe it or not, we've gotten really good at that. And that's really the focus here, is not to, the formula is not to be amazing all the time. The formula can be getting really good at sucking, and essentially being able to be forgiving, to come to peace with the flaws in the system. I don't see them as flaws, but I know in this conversation they can look like flaws and weaknesses. And but to be able to, it's possible for us to come to peace with an imperfect system where we're amazing sometimes, and then we're really bad other times, and in between we're mediocre. Everybody that you know, that you look up to, that you admire, the people you follow on social media, your mentors, the authors you read, people's parents that look like they have it all together, they're varying degrees of comfortable with the system. And I'm suggesting you can get really good at getting comfortable with an imperfect system, but you definitely have to be okay with the fact that you're not amazing all the time. And part of my problem when I was younger that ate me alive was the self-consciousness of that people are noticing that I'm not doing well. What am I doing? People are watching me. I have to stand out, or the feeling, time pressure of like, I have to start being amazing now so that later I don't regret. I gotta be ahead of schedule, or if I want to do something amazing with my life, I have to start now. That pressure and the self-consciousness, it just those make us real and human. Everybody, if you got to know the people that you look up to and that you admire and that seem really put together, if you had a chance to have a conversation with them, you'd hear insecurities in them. You'd hear, if you followed them around for a week, you'd see them blurt things that gets them into trouble with their families. You'd see them overthinking decisions and being impulsive, saying things that are hurtful, intentionally hurting people when they're grouchy. There's, the idea that the bigger and the deeper truth here, while we do have insecurities and we are subpar compared to, if you look at enough people, you're going to feel inadequate. Even if you're amazing, like this tennis player, she's really, really good at tennis, but of course there's always a better tennis player. And so that's, so that's sort of a fixed thing, is as soon as you start comparing yourself, inadequacy is right behind it. It's just, and what that's pointing to, I'll just talk about myself, when I feel inadequate or subpar, when I feel like I could do better, or I'm self-conscious or down on myself, or I feel like I don't have what it takes, 100% of the time I'm comparing myself to somebody. It doesn't, those feelings of feeling lacking and like you have a deficit, like you're broken, like you're missing some parts, that's a thought problem. It's a perception problem. It's an outlook problem. Just like if you pick somebody apart, that was my favorite pastime in high school. And part of college was just picking other people apart. It's what I did. I just was really critical and that had to do with me. It didn't have to do with the other people. And when we turn that on ourselves, that has to do with us. So feelings of inadequacy, it's a trap, because it's not a sign that there's presence of inadequacy. It's a sign that you're thinking and that you have an outlook where you're picking apart your flaws. You're looking for your flaws. That's what we do when we compare people. I know that's what parents do, because I talk to parents all day long, and that's what they'll say. I can tell somebody that just got off social media or just went to a family reunion or just went to somebody's house who has kids, because I'll hear all of the ways that their kids aren't as good as their kids and how that reflects on their parenting. So, one of the things that I think is, at least it's helpful for parents, but for young people as well, is that, while thought gets used against us, we can use it against us. Like I said earlier, by picking us apart, the bigger truth about thought is that it also takes us out of that. So while we have the ability to fault find in ourselves and look at what we don't have and compare, we also have the power of resilience that's baked into the recipe too. And we're resilient to our core. So we're kind of born that way. We struggle, but we find our way through. So all of the ways that we suck now, there's systems in place where life experience translates all of the failures and impulses and bad decisions and overthinking, the social awkwardness. We're honing skills, and those, essentially the discomfort is doing badly in life is what growing pains look like, of us kind of figuring things out. And we don't have to do anything to get that, because sort of, our resilience, our ability to kind of find our way through the mess. Not only do we come out the other side of all the messes we've ever been, but we're better. And we don't have to do anything for that. We just sit there. Like, I remember when I was pregnant with my first kid, I was like, I'm growing a kid right now. I'm making a body right now. I'm just sitting here. And how amazing it was that you can just sit here and have something happening. That's how resilience is. You can just sit here and you're getting over stuff. You're understanding life through just the fact of experience, and all the mess is what that's the noise that it makes when you're doing better in life. So you don't have to, and tennis, any sport is a great example. If you just play tennis for 60 hours, no matter how bad you are, you're going to be better at the end. Well, that's why you don't have to concern yourself with the mess, because we do better despite that, and we do better in all of those areas over time. So we're sort of, our resilience is a gift. It's an instinct that we're born with. So what ends up happening, what I had to realize as a teenager is, you in the moment, it looks like you're losing ground, but really there's sort of that term in the military where you lose the battle, but you win the war. That's what we're talking about here is you want to kind of scale back and get a little bit of perspective. I'm saying that one of the best remedies for insecurities and for feeling like a mess and feeling lacking and feeling like you're behind and not as good as everybody else or not as put together is to understand we can't get rid of our insecurities and lostness, and we don't have to. So we can sort of influence with our there's a way in which we can use our free will and our intention to sort of see, first of all, anytime you compare yourself, really anytime you think about yourself, almost 100% of the time people think about themselves, it comes from a feeling of insecurity. They start there. Now, they might have been fine getting on social media to post a picture, and all of a sudden you start looking at people. But as soon as you start doubting yourself, what happened right before that is you started thinking about yourself. We generally only think about ourselves when we're asking the question, what's wrong with me? And that's something you want to at least be able to see. The inadequacies, the feeling of inadequacy is kind of, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, that's true of inadequacy. Feeling behind, like you're not as put together. Just like my client yesterday said, she said, everybody's looking at my pictures and thinking I have it together. And here I am, like I just got done crying right before I got on her call. And that's, she could be talking about any of us. Now, one of the things that I tell a lot of my young clients, one of the reasons it sucks so much to be a teenager and a young person sometimes is because partly you have just a flood of emotions and your chemistry's all over the place, and you're supposed to start to be responsible, and you have no idea what you're doing. You have like the least life experience you're ever going to have, and yet you have to make life-changing decisions. So it's a thing. Like there's actually you're in a tough spot. But the other part of it that makes it tough is that you have more time on your hands than you're ever going to have. You have more time to think. So as you get older, you kind of, you've had time to sort of arrange your life and put things in and take things out. And when you're young, you don't have any of that. You're just, whatever's dumped on your plate, that's what you have to work with. The people, the career ideas, you just take whatever is in your tiny little sphere. And one of the things that helps my young people, my clients, is I tell them, look, having time on your hands is not good. Having extra time to think about yourself is not good. And one of the reasons one of the ways I explain that is that I tell them, I find what things are you interested in? Where do you spend your free time? When people are when young people, even the most tormented ones, are engaged in life, when they're in a feeling of focus and engagement, their well-being is completely intact. Just like this client right before, she was having a good time, she's not thinking about herself, and then she started thinking about herself on social media. Well, there's something about being engaged, having your mind be being present in life and participating in life in real time. Adults call that being in the moment or being present, whatever your word is for it. There's something magical happens in the state when we're in engagement and focus, in the same way that as soon as you start comparing yourself, there's a predictable drop in your well-being. Engagement is a remedy to that. It's one of the remedies. And I think teenagers there's so much chaos. For young people, they don't, looking back, I know I had too much time to think and go over to the dark side. And had I known better, I would have gotten involved in more things. Well, probably not. I was too cynical. But there's something in the person I talked to yesterday said, well, I watch shows. When I'm not doing well, I watch shows. I'll binge watch something. And, I know I'm not supposed to be on screens. And I said, look, anything that gets your mind out of thinking about yourself is good. Obviously there's some implications to just being fixated on your phone, but I told this client actually yesterday this story of how I get on a call with somebody at the beginning of the pandemic, and she'd been doing really badly. And I'd only talked to her once. And I said, look, between now and then, just see if you can engage your mind in anything, and she said, well, I like makeup videos. I like watching them and then practicing, and then I take it all off and I do it again. And so I said, great, do that. Whatever keeps your mind engaged. So I get on the next call with her, and I can see her holding something at the bottom of the screen that she's kind of putting stuff away, and it looked like a strawberry. And I said, like, what is that? Is that a strawberry? And she said, yeah, she's using her makeup tweezers to take every little seed off the outside of this strawberry. And she said, I've been doing that for the last hour because I kind of started to go down a rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm going to be talking to Erika soon. What's wrong with me? I should, so I can tell her what's wrong with me so she can vacuum it all out. And she said, I ended up spending this whole hour picking all the seeds off of this strawberry. And she showed me the strawberry with no seeds on it, those little things that get caught in your teeth. And so I said, well, so how'd that work out? And she said, well, I have this strawberry. And I said, I know, but I'm just interested, like, did it do anything for your mood state? And she said, well, actually, yeah. She was like, I was kind of into it. I was wishing I had time. She's like, I'm going to do this whole basket, because she was so into it. And this is somebody that came to me because she's restless and easily bored and can't sit still in class. And it was so interesting because the point I made with her, and I want to make here, is it doesn't even matter what you're doing. State of engagement in and of itself is medicinal. And that's one of the tools that we understand through life experience, because we sit around thinking about ourselves, have nothing to show for it. We learn as we get older. Oh, okay, I need to engage my mind. I need to, you can't just let it go wherever it wants. And young people don't understand that. And that's part of my job, is to say, you kind of have to babysit it. So if you start thinking about yourself, you have to redirect it. Just like this client, it took her an hour. The one that was on, hanging out with her friends and then got in her head, it took her an hour, and people started leaving. And she's like, what am I doing? I have left the room. I'm not even here. So your mind, if you let it do whatever it wants, it will just wreck the place. And not only that, it doesn't, the human mind, it doesn't, when it's engaged, when it's focused on anything, schoolwork, cleaning, picking seeds off the strawberries, drawing, being of service, hanging, helping your friends, hanging out with your pets. It's the best remedy for insecurity and doubt. It's essentially there's another route to the inadequacy problem that's better than putting pressure on yourself to do better and be better. And I'm saying it's the function of essentially getting your mind quieter, and focus and engagement is one way of doing that. So really, what I tell parents is, look, when your teenager is really struggling, you got to focus on your own lane. Don't be backseat driving their car. You can't be looking over at what they're doing, especially if they're struggling. You have to really get yourself together. And I tell parents to do the same thing, even when there's, their teenager is suffering and struggling in some really real and dangerous ways. I tell parents, like, you have to get your head together. And I tell them, look, go get yourself focused and engaged and grounded in something. And they have to tell them to turn their back on their kids who are in a state of crisis so that they can get their composure back. And I tell them, look, I don't even care what you do. Just do something besides thinking about your kids and where you went wrong. And it works every time. So it's true, even if your life's on fire, that if you're interested in investing in your life, in your future, getting your head as quiet and grounded and calm as you can get it, provides for you in a much more powerful way than trying to micromanage your life and improve yourself one flaw at a time. So what this might look like I know the military back in World War II in the US, they had people that were just out in battle, and then they come back and they're freaked out, they're traumatized, they lost friends, they're worried about going back out there, and why are we doing this? And the way that they protected these soldiers from those mental states is they had this thing called make work. They would just come up with things to do, like digging holes. They'd say, they'd have them digging holes, cleaning latrines, washing tanks. They didn't do anything with the holes, and the soldiers knew that. They knew, I'm digging this to protect myself. But here's the thing that's cool, so that this isn't just denial. While they're digging holes, their head's clear, and they see their faith in they end up getting feelings of, and they would describe it this way: gratitude for the camaraderie that they have, and the fact that they're still here, some faith that we'll go back out and see if we can retrieve our the other soldiers that are out there. We're going to reinforce them. They kind of find their vision and a sense of purpose. So the human mind is designed to be engaged and taking part in life. It's designed to be present and to show up and participate. That's our natural biological state. So if you look out your window and you see birds out there, they're all doing something. There's none of them sitting around, vaping. There's none of them sitting around just, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not collecting as many seeds as the other people. They're busy. They're engaged. And that is our natural biological state. And it's where animals' instincts come through. It's where our instincts come through. So there's something, it's not just a distraction, the idea of focus and engagement on your life and whatever you have. It's that ideas and new thought gets created through a mind that's engaged and quiet. So focus is just one way of doing it, but the other way that I tell people, just throw yourself into whatever life you have. If you're having a midlife crisis at 40 and you don't know what you're doing with your life and you don't know what to do with your job, throw yourself into your current job. And once you're engaged in that and your head clears and you're busy doing this crappy job you don't want to do for the rest of your life, forget about what you want to be doing and how much you hate your job, throw yourself into it, and you can get, your mind will get in a more reflective state. And that's when you ask yourself, what do I want to do with this next phase? What opportunities do I have? That's what make work did for soldiers. So there is some understanding in there about the human mind that I'm pointing to. But you don't have to understand all of it. It's just you want to at least consider that you have the free will to either use the power of thought to bring your weaknesses, to look for them, ask what are they, start collecting them, and then feel bad about them and try and formulate a plan to fix them all. You can do that if you want. No one will stop you. I can't even stop you. But you also have the power to look to see, oh, I'm doing badly. I'm in a low, and this is not a good time to use my mind to think about myself and my life and my future, and to use your mind to engage yourself in whatever's happening in the moment, whatever your life is, to throw yourself into it. Whatever is happening in real time in life, you have the power to just show up and do that. And there's sort of a spiritual payoff of engagement in life. That's not only does it benefit you in terms of our effectiveness, we do better, we heal, we come to peace with things when our heads are more clear and calm. But it's also it's a nice feeling that you have before you fix anything. Engagement brings you peace of mind even before you've figured out what you want to do with the rest of your life, or even before you get the healing power. There's the feeling of focus and engagement in the life such as you have has the feelings that you're looking for, even if you're just a student and you don't know what you're doing with your life. Your engagement in whatever after school sports or clubs you're in, or people you're hanging out with, shows you're watching, your well-being is just as intact as somebody who has their life together. It's sort of, that feeling is available to people right now. It's you don't have to be different to have your mind in a state of calm and rest and confidence and stability and a feeling of security and like you're doing just fine. Because my client felt that right before she got on her phone yesterday with her friends. There was nothing wrong with her. She loved her life. And by the time I talked to her, she said, I'm doing great. I just got into doubt. And once you go there, there's plenty of material. It doesn't matter who you are. You guys have questions? Any questions, comments? If there's any young people on here that want to speak up, I take questions from comments from anybody, but I'd love to hear from young adults if they're on there. Normally they're the last people to speak up, so would never have caught me asking a question. So but anybody, anything that's landing for you, anything that clicks, that makes sense, or any questions. Yeah, Dominique, you know how to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect, because I don't know how to do that.
Okay, yeah, Erika, thank you. And I want to say hello to Stephanie because I live in Spain now. So yeah, we will be quite close to each other.
Be neighbors.
Yeah, so and I'm 35, so I think I'm not the youngest one, but still kind of young, I think. And as you told right now, all the stories about your clients and your teenagers, I was thinking like, oh my God, I'm the same. And this is not my age anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I'm traveling around the world and it's still so big for me. And I'm a freelancer, so I can't get my feet on the ground. I'm just always in the wind. Wherever I want to go, I can go. I also want to do stuff like this. I go on the right side. Oh, then I can see something new. Oh, I'm so addicted to it, so I will do this. And then I will go to New Zealand, but right now I live in Spain. Okay, how can I handle this? This is Erika. I mean, I love my life, but it's too short on one hand, and on the other hand, I'm stressed out, you know. I feel like
Too many
I get it.
options.
Yeah, so many options.
It reminds me of when I was a little kid and I got some grandparent gave me $5 to spend in a store and I started crying because I couldn't decide. I couldn't handle it. I had to be carried out of the store.
So it's the same for me, because I came to Spain 10 weeks before, and you know, I got this feeling. I was thinking, this is what Sydney Banks said, look after a feeling. So I had this amazing feeling. Yeah, I live in Spain now, but now I can see, okay, maybe this is not what I want. So I can't handle this really, because there was a feeling.
Well, one of the things I think that happens is, first of all, just because there's doubt doesn't mean you made a mistake. You might be in doubt, even if you had, no matter what life you're in. That's the thing I think that was a relief for me, because it didn't mean I needed to change something. It just, I would be in a state of doubt no matter what life I had picked and what path I'd taken. There's going to be a certain amount of that. Now it does mean that that there is oftentimes our doubts, there's something helpful in there. Just because you feel a negativity doesn't mean you dismiss the whole thing. A lot of my insights have come through a painful feeling of pain, but the realization was something I needed to see. And one of the ways that, you know, thought is organized is that when you're, you know, if you can when your mind is quiet and you're not feeling overwhelmed or even excited, can be, you know, feels good, but it, like, that was my problem. It's not just because it's positive doesn't mean that it's helpful. Is it, you know, when your mind gets a little bit more quiet and you can get essentially, sometimes you have to get away from something and stop thinking about it so that you can look at it fresh. And oftentimes I know, like, should I be living in Portugal? If you're going to ask a question, it's the when you ask that matters, not so it's really this state, the feeling you're coming from when you look at your life. Because you'll get a different answer if you're in sort of a excitable or manic state. A lot of my clients get into like a manic, I got to fix everything all at once, and it feels really productive, but worrying feels really productive. I know I'm like really good at it. It's not productive. So I think, you know, being excitable or, you know, thinking about your life just because it does feel like you're doing something, but nothing comes out of it. So I do think the only thing that, you know, somebody asked, it sounds like there's something to do. That's something I should be doing and not doing. Really, I don't, everybody kind of uses the understanding of this system in a different way. They kind of figure it out on their own. I'll just speak for me because this might not work for anybody else, but I know for me, I have to be willing to, first of all, ask a question when I'm not all amped up. But I also have to be comfortable having I have no idea answer when I get there. So there's times where I've had to ask myself questions of just about parenting. My kids are 19 and 21. And I have to ask I'll see parenting dilemmas, and I might have to ask myself, you know, 10, 12 times, what do I do with this? And I don't get any answers. I see, well, I know what I don't want to do. And I get clear on like, well, what's the issue? I'll get more clear on what the question is, but I don't have an answer. And part of it, I think, is being willing to kind of, we don't know all of our answers. And that's part of the recipe, is that we don't get to know everything. But you certainly will get, I find, more of your wisdom. You have a chance for some wisdom and clarity to come in if you can ask when you're not, when you don't have a lot of energy around it. And when you're willing to just sit back and take a fresh look and see if something, when you look at it fresh, sometimes you look at something, you're like, I know what to do. And sometimes what you'll see is, you know what, I'm just in doubt. Everything's fine. questioning my life like everybody else. It doesn't mean I should change it. So you don't know what your answer, sometimes your answer is there's no problem. Sometimes your answer is there is a problem or something to do. I have no idea what it is. And I think it's sort of a willingness to be patient and know, again, there is nothing to do. Life is messy, and we don't get our answers. We just do the best we have that we can with no formula. There's no formula. So we're just winging it. All of us. You're just dealt certain cards, and just like I tell my teenagers, and I tell my parent clients that too, you're just dealt a hand, like these are your kids, and here's your strengths. Some of those cards are your strengths, and then you get this kid you're not good at parenting, and that's what you got. You got to play it the best. It's going to be messy. You just do the best you can. And with teenagers, you just here's the parents you have. They might be overbearing. They might be apathetic. They might not care. You got to just wing it. It's just, and I think in that sense, you end up coming to peace with the fact that, of course, it's going to be messy because we don't know what we're doing. And to kind of be okay with just having life be about participating and being involved. And it just so happens that if you can keep your state out of your doubt, you'll start seeing more opportunities in what you're doing. You'll feel more engagement with what you're doing, with your life set up such as it is. And if there's other opportunities, you'll see them if you can bring some focus and look for a feeling of fulfillment in your life such as it is. We're capable of that. If we're capable of finding fulfillment picking the seeds off of a strawberry for an hour, then we're capable of finding fulfillment in any life that we have. So I think, does that make sense, Dominique?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there are always more options. They're coming to my mind. There are more thoughts. There's more overthinking, and it's always like this. And I think my biggest problem is that I don't have a calm mind. So I have too much energy always. I'm always under a kind of pressure and a high range of energy. So yeah, it's not that easy for me to get my mind calm. So I tried it, but
well, I think you're on the same continuum as somebody who's really bummed out and can't seem to get involved in anything. You just have sort of, it's kind of a package deal, and there's upsides to the psychology that you have. And then there's a struggle in there. And I think you'll do better with the mind that you have over time. Just like someone who's depressed, you kind of get to know your mind, and this is just sort of a direction to look.
Yeah.
And you want to remember everybody's up against something, and not to feel like I need to, not to get caught in that, well, I want to, I could be doing so much better if my mind would just cooperate. We're all in that boat. I think I say that once a week. I have that same thought, and my habits drive me crazy, but you're getting better at those if you're stuck with them, sort of having faith and the patience that, like, we're going to go to the grave a certain amount of mess, and to sort of let yourself off the hook to just enjoy your life such as you are with whatever hand you got dealt.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the potential here.
Yeah, thank you, Erika.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your honesty and being able to just,
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, Lexi, you had a question or a comment.
Hi. First of all, thank you. I'm loving this, and I love how this kind of dropping of expectation just feels so liberating. And when you say letting yourself off the hook, I don't know, I was kind of torn because there's two levels I wanted to ask a question. I didn't know if one was a bit kind of too much. But the first thing was, I've also was watching you with David Key, and I love when you were saying there, like, when you feel a bit lost, to actually be able to say, hey, I'm feeling really stuck, I'm feeling really lost, give me something better than I have right now in terms of a feeling or in terms of a direction to look. And there was something just really practical about that while still leaving it on the back burner and letting it percolate and not having a job. So I loved all of that. And then I don't know whether this is too specific, but I was coaching, I've been in the 3Ps for a while, like a few years. And my background was education. I used to be a primary school teacher.
Oh, cool.
And I was about 6 months ago working with a lady, a mom who has OCD herself. And she's just recently reached out to me to have a conversation with her 12-year-old daughter, and who I'm seeing tomorrow for the first time for an initial conversation. So we've never met before. It's going to be on Zoom. And she has quite a few OCD things. And I think there's a lot of expectation on herself and how she's very bright by the sounds of it. And she's forever kind of getting herself into a pickle, and her brain is very, very fast.
Right.
So I love a lot of what you're saying about taking away the expectation and kind of letting her off the hook. But I guess my question, if it's kind of a question that can be answered within this thing, and if not, please just say, like on a very initial conversation with somebody of about that kind of age where they don't know you kind of got no rapport yet, even if you're quite comfortable talking with kids, how do you speak to somebody for the very first time? And I wondered whether you might be able to support me with that.
No, I'm happy to support that. To answer that, I think is first of all, the first point you made is about what I was saying about, just being able to own for ourselves, like, I am freaking out about this thing. Like, just to be able to stop and, let that in and at least get honest. That's what that feels like, is honesty of like, I'm stuck and I'm freaking out, or I feel, at least for me, the reason that does something for people, and I'll link that to your question, is that being able to see, okay, there's tension inside of us. We understand that when we're doing badly, we don't do life well. We get impaired. People understand that, just like we understand, when you're drinking, you can't drive. When people are not in a good state, they do badly in life. And sometimes people forget to register on the fact that they're doing badly. That's why your life looks like such a mess and why you're so ineffective. So there's something in being able to call out the fact that, like, yeah, my life's a mess, but more importantly, I'm freaking out. I'm a deer in the headlights. That I think just acknowledging that for people and stopping and saying, I'm suggesting that's the only problem that matters. Forget about your life. Just like when you're a teenager struggling. And I think it calms people down to see, well, that's the first problem. And as soon as you can own the fact and acknowledge of the fact that you're tense and freaking out, it immediately brings a little bit of calm to people. I know it does for me when I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scattered. Like, that just immediately calms myself down. I have to stop what I'm doing and kind of look inside, but there's something, a corrective measure that happens inside of us naturally if we see, oh, thought is a factor here and it's doing badly. That's when I talk to teenagers, especially for the first time, and somebody asked about, a kid that's sort of paralyzed by indecision. I see a lot of that. There's too many options. I don't know what to do. It really matters. The first thing, separate from solving their problem, especially in the first session, I am mostly interested in, like, how are they doing? And just listening to them, saying, like, just, talk to me. If they seem like they want to just launch, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? Or to just ask them questions about, their life. And generally what I'm listening for is to hear, like, their mood state. I'm listening for, like, they're freaked out. They're like, they feel like there's a right way. Like, I had a kid that had a client that was a girl that was kind of paralyzed by indecision, and she had OCD. She was worried about, like, what college do I pick, and her OCD was getting worse. And I said, look, everybody we have to make decisions, and we don't have enough information. We're all up against that. something you got to get comfortable with. But you also find we seem to find our way through life, no matter which path we take, even when we take the wrong ones. And, you know, it looks like I can tell you feel like you have to find the right way. And that's a lot of pressure to live under. And when people get pressured, they get more symptomatic, and their OCD, their depression, their, you know, vaping, using drugs. So really, I think what matters is for them to feel like you see them and you get them. So forget about helping them. Help them later. The getting them part. I know that's what I want. You know, when I'm struggling with something in my business, when I'm struggling with something in my parenting, I just want a place to like try and sort things out. And I look for somebody that will just listen. And I don't even need them. You know, somehow it seems better than just talking to the dog or a chair. But having somebody listen, I don't want their input. I just want them to not freak out. And usually what'll happen is they'll say, well, why don't you do this? And I know I have some sense of the answer because I know I'm not doing that. That's a stupid suggestion. So we know, even when we think we don't know what to do, we know we have some sense because we know what we're not going to do. And I think really what young people want is what everybody wants, but young people is just, they have so few people, if anybody, they just want somebody to get them. They want somebody to stop and care about what's happening to them.
And
what
they
it's
maybe
like
not be freaked out by what's freaking them out. So for example, if she's freaked out by her OCD, and I think probably her mum is too, because she's got OCD as well.
Absolutely.
It's not somebody who goes, hey, this is okay, this is normal. And
yeah.
And
And
even
this is what
OCD, sorry, it's kind of maybe just popped into my head as you were talking, to maybe just to see that OCD is actually like really intelligent behavior, like to help. It's the brain's way of helping itself to calm down. It's kind of your own wisdom, knowing just that giving itself a distraction can be really
Yeah.
great. One that pops into its mind, it's brilliance.
It's telling you on the outside what that your mind needs is not doing well. Exactly. It's just like road rage. It's just, you know, road rage is just what the human mind does if you let it escalate unchecked. And it's the same with schizophrenia. It's just their hallucinations tell them, oh, you're in an agitated state. It's just an indicator dial on the outside, where for the rest of it's on the inside. So having really big feelings, having, you know, using drugs will tell you the more drugs you're using, the more you need to intentionally get your mind in a more calm state. And that's why I talk about, you know, ways of doing that. And well, what makes you calm? Well, might want to do a little more of that. You might want to get away from people and get away from people's input. Or, you know, I kind of will look at, well, where do you get agitated? Just so that they can see, oh, I have some free will here. I have some influence. It feels really out of control. And there's something in being able to explain, well, OCD is just what happens. It's your mind's way of asking for help. Just like muscle pain, if you pick up something too heavy or you exercise too much, it's helping you. And I think it's just having you take them in and explain things in a way where it's not through a lens of being afraid of it. Your calm is what will calm her down. But even if you don't have anything, amazing to say, you can't come up with anything and you're on the spot, which happens. I know when I was first working with teenagers, I need to save them like right now. Is you don't need to worry so much about that. And when you're just, the part of them, the helpful part is just feeling listened to, understood, and feeling like there's somebody in their corner. There's somebody that gets them, somebody that understands what it's like for them and has respect for that, and that their experience matters, what happens to them matters, and what they're going through, and to feel like there's somebody that's helping them. You don't even have to be doing anything. When you talk to someone and you're complaining to them, you're like, yeah, there's two of us here. There's something comforting in that. And this is at an age where everybody's too caught up. Nobody cares about them. Even if they care about them, it doesn't look like that. So to them, it looks like their parents definitely don't care about them because they're dismissive, they're controlling, they're impatient, they're reactive. So it looks like no one cares, and their friends are all self-absorbed and in a state of chaos. Their teachers are oversubscribed. So, having anyone that stops to care is like a glass of water in the desert. So the bar is set pretty low.
That's
as long
nice.
as you're interested, the pressure's off because you're doing so much more for them. And as soon as their mind, they feel cared about, we see our own answers. Not that we don't do anything as practitioners, but a lot of that heavy lifting is simply done by your presence. But honestly, the principles, a huge amount of the benefit of the principles that you bring them is because you're not afraid and you trust. Between the two of us bozos, if we sit around and look at some of your problems, one of us going to be able to come up with something. That's you're trusting. It's the two of us. We're two completely intact people that are capable of seeing answers. So your confidence in them, the same amount of confidence that you have in your friends that are adults that aren't clinically symptomatic, that's what the principles bring. They have just as much in there as we do. And that's really, before you even open your mouth to teach them anything, it comes out in your feeling. So you don't want to leave the barn without that. You want to make sure that you have that. So if you're intimidated by them, or if you're a parent and you're reactive to your kid, you want to find your faith in them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Stephanie, are we okay asking one more question, or is it obnoxious to go too much longer? We don't have to.
Let's go one more. We've
Okay.
had somebody with their hand
And
up.
whoever has to leave, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. Not that observant. Yeah, Lily. Is it Lily? Am I saying that right?
Hi there.
Hey.
I'm 14 years old, and I have a question in general that I think many teenage girls can relate to,
Great.
who maybe are in this call and don't want to ask a question or don't feel confident enough to ask a question.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a bit more on the status of popularity and how many people or teenagers in general struggle with popularity and their status in society and how they want to be more popular and
Right.
can affect them?
Yeah. Believe it or not, adults do the same thing. It's a little embarrassing. But I'm glad you asked that. It's a funny thing that, everybody kind of pays attention to different things. And some people pay attention to, well, how good are your grades? They don't care about popularity. They care how good your grades are. Other people look at, well, I don't care about popularity. I care about like how nice are your clothes? How much money do you have? Is it like the real kind where it's in your family, or is it the kind you just made? People are kind of, or they don't care about popularity. They care about like athletic accomplishment or how much contribution you're making to the world. How socially aware are you? How much do you understand, politics, and how informed are you? Everybody kind of makes up their own rules. And popularity is a perfect example of that, is that we randomly pick a criteria and then we feel bad about it. We feel lesser. It's a funny thing that how bad we feel, given that everybody's making up their own system to evaluate people on. So I remember going back, I had a shoulder injury, so I did Bikram yoga. Do you have that? Where are you from? You said.
I'm from Cyprus. I'm half Armenian, half Cypriot. So
Okay. You ever done yoga? You ever been to like a yoga class?
I have.
I remember going to this yoga class, and the yoga instructor was really full of himself. I know him well, we kind of laugh about it now. He was just really kind of condescending and arrogant, and it was funny to me because I just started yoga, but I thought, you're just stretchier than everybody else. You're not actually better. Like in my world, no one cares about flexibility. So you're just a dude that teaches an exercise class. But if you get in his world, there's a hierarchy and he's at the top of it. And that's the thing about thought is the way that the human mind works is it's the name of the game is completely made up for everybody. And I think what helps my clients that feel like, well, it matters, how thin they are, how many followers they have, what their GPA is, how much of their potential they're using, is to understand that it's just something that we've made up, and it doesn't. The only person that cares about it is you. And so the stuff that I make up, no one else cares about that. And there's for young people, I think being able to, or at least I was this way. I just assumed that everybody was thinking about me and sizing me up the way that I was thinking about everybody else. And I think what happens is once the popularity thing, let's just using that as an example, that will only seem like a problem to you when you get insecure, when your mood state drops, all your ideas and your kind of worldviews about yourself, your little filters and the glasses you wear about yourself, that's when we put them on. Popularity for people isn't as soon as you can tell me this, when you're hanging out with your friends or with you have pets, you have like pets at home?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of my teenage clients and my kids, they're when they're with our dogs, their minds, they don't think about themselves at all. They're not self-conscious. They're relaxed, they're open, they're themselves. That's who we would say, that's the person, that's who I am. When I'm relaxed, that's the real me. The insecure me that questions myself, the one that's mean to people, the one that's down on, when I get down on myself, that's not who I am. There's essentially two versions of us, and we have to sort of decide which one we want to buy in, which one matters more. And that's the thing about popularity, is when there's going to be times when your mood state goes up, the popularity won't matter. And as soon as your mood state drops, that's when everybody gets into their thought systems about, and like this yoga instructor, Luis, would think about how stretchy he is and how much better he is. When he got relaxed after class, he didn't have any, you can see in terms of hierarchy and who's better. So it's really just as soon as popularity looks like a thing, that's a sign that you've gotten into your ego and your head and your sort of rules that you've made up. It's still going to do it. If popularity is something that you think about and you track in yourself, doesn't mean you can stop doing it, because everybody gets insecure and we're going to think about something. But there's something that helps people to know that once we start thinking about popularity, it's just because we feel threatened and insecure and like we've got something to prove. It's not a truth. It's not real. It'll feel like a truth and it'll feel real, but it's not a real truth the way that you would say when you're relaxed with your friends or with your animals at home. That's the real you. That's really what we're talking about, is your mind will kind of, I don't know, it lies to you. It's like a it's like a movie. It's fiction. And the worse people feel, the less trustworthy your mind gets. And that's when people tend to think in terms of how popular they are, and they're not as good a person if they're less popular. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you a lot. I think it cleared the whole situation that many people struggle with. I hope it helped other people in the school as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked about that.
No problem.
I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah. And I'll wrap up on that note. I think, when people relax and they're, when we get our stability back, we don't, I said earlier, we don't think about ourselves at all. And ironically, we do better. So if you think about popularity, for example, and if popularity really matters to you, just like academics or tennis or, how stretchy you are, flexible, the more you relax and stop thinking about what, yourself and how you're doing, the less you track yourself, the better we do. So when we're not thinking about ourselves, we do really well, ironically. So when you're not thinking about how well you're doing in a sport, you do better in a sport. When you're not thinking about how well you're doing on a test, and you're just focused on the moment, all your energy goes into the test. And that's also true of popularity. So when you're not thinking about yourself, you're a more likable person. You'll be more relaxed. People will want to hang out with you more. As soon as you start thinking about how you're doing and your popularity and trying to further your efforts, people are going to flee the scene. I know, because I tried to be funny one year. I was like, I'm going to be funny. I thought I had to know who I was, and I picked a thing, and I was like, I'm going to be this. I tried being mysterious when at one point in high school, and I was like, no, I'm going to be the funny one, because I couldn't do mysterious. And it was awful. It was really uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for my friends. And I think that's the thing, is that the things that we're looking for, when you're not playing the game, they come to us naturally. And popularity is a perfect example of that. We do better socially when we don't care how we're doing. So if that's something that matters to people, that's the one thing you want to think about and track the least. Well, thanks, you guys. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry I went over, but
Thank you, Erika.
appreciate your questions.
I think it was really worth it. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for sharing, and thank you everyone for attending and asking your questions.
Yeah, especially asking questions for the young people who, I know they don't want to talk on a camera of a bunch of grown-ups. So I appreciate if you get extra points for speaking up. So thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot, you guys. Have a good rest of your evening for those of you in Europe, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thank you, Erika. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.